Mongolia. Dawn over the steppe. Wind bending tall grass. In 2003, a team of scientists from Oxford published the results of a genetic study. They examined the DNA of more than 2,000 men from 16 populations across Asia. They didn't expect to find anything unusual. They were wrong. The same genetic marker appeared again and again in Mongolia, in Kazakhstan, in Afghanistan, in China, in Iran, in Pakistan, in Russia. 8% of men across the former Mongol Empire carried the same Y chromosome. 8%. That is 16 million living men. Since then, new studies have cited a higher figure, up to 40 million. The scientists reviewed the data, checked the calculations, ran the analyses again. The result did not change. The only explanation that matched the mathematics sounded impossible. All of these people descended from a single man. And that man lived around 1162 AD. DNA says otherwise than history. Genghis Khan is one of the few names known in every country on Earth. In the West, he is a conqueror, a destroyer of civilizations, a man who killed, by various estimates, between 10 and 40 million people in an era when the entire world population was around 400 million. He erased Samarkand, Nishapur, Beijing, and Baghdad from the face of the earth. His armies annihilated entire peoples so thoroughly that modern demographers record a collapse in the Eurasian population lasting several centuries. In Mongolia, he is the father of the nation, the founder of statehood, a lawmaker. His face is printed on banknotes. The international airport of Ulaanbaatar is named after him. A 40-meter statue looks out from a hill above the capital. For centuries, historians described him using the same sources: Persian chronicles he had destroyed, and Chinese records too afraid to call things by their true names. We knew about his conquests. We knew about his laws. We knew the date of his death, presumably 1227, though to this day no one knows exactly where he is buried. But one thing historians never seriously studied: what happened to his genes? For 8 centuries, this seemed like an irrelevant question. Great rulers always have descendants. No one had reason to think Genghis Khan's descendants were anything different. They were wrong. To understand what DNA discovered, you first need to understand the scale. The Mongol Empire, at its peak, roughly 1206 to 1294, covered approximately 24 million square kilometers. That is, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Larger than Rome, larger than Britain, larger than any other. From the Pacific Ocean to the Danube, from Siberia to the Persian Gulf. Genghis Khan did not simply conquer territory, he conquered populations. According to Mongol traditions and documented historical sources, the victor received the right to everything, including the women of the defeated. This was not an exception. It was the norm of warfare in his era, applied systematically at a scale no one before him had practiced. His own harem numbered, by various estimates, between 500 and 3,000 women. The Persian historian Rashid al-Din, writing shortly after his death, cited specific figures: several thousand concubines selected from subjugated peoples over the course of the Khan's life. His sons received the same privilege at the same scale. His son Jochi controlled the western territories. Chagatai held Central Asia. Ogadai governed China and Mongolia. Each had his own harem. Each had dozens of documented sons. Their sons had the same privilege, and their sons inherited it in turn. A 14th century Persian chronicle, the Compendium of Chronicles, counted 28 documented sons by Genghis Khan's principal wives alone. with children by concubines uncounted. Another source, The Secret History of the Mongols, written approximately 20 years after his death, described his father Yesuge as a man with many wives and children. This was the norm for the Borjigin clan to which Genghis Khan belonged. The mathematics are simple. If one man has several hundred children, and his direct male descendants receive the same privileges over 5 to 6 generations, then by the time Mongol dominance ended in the 14th and 15th centuries, the number of carriers of a single Y chromosome could have reached several 100,000. Over the next 600 years, through normal demographic growth, that becomes tens of millions. This is not a hypothesis. This is arithmetic. In 2003, a team of geneticists led by Chris Tyler Smith of the Sanger Institute in the United Kingdom published a study in the American Journal of Human Genetics titled The Genetic Legacy of the Mongols. Tyler Smith was not looking for Genghis Khan. He was studying Y chromosomes in Asian populations to understand the routes of ancient migrations. The Y chromosome is a special tool. It passes from father to son with almost no changes. Random mutations accumulate slowly, approximately one per several generations. This allows tracking the direct male line back hundreds and thousands of years. When the team processed data from 2,120 men across 16 populations, one cluster of Y chromosomes immediately drew attention. They called it the C-star cluster. Its official genetic designation is haplogroup C2b-L1373. What made it unusual? First, its frequency. In some populations, particularly among the Hazara of Afghanistan and certain Kazakh tribes, it appeared in 35% of men. Second, its geography. It concentrated precisely where the Mongol Empire had been located in the 13th and 14th centuries. Beyond those borders, apart from a minor scatter, it was almost entirely absent. Third, its diversity. The star cluster contained many closely related variants, branching from a single trunk. Genetically, this indicated rapid reproduction from a single ancestor, not slow millennial dispersal, but explosive growth within historical time. The team conducted a statistical analysis. The question was, could this distribution have arisen by chance? Random genetic drift, population isolation, geographic barriers, all of these can theoretically produce highly concentrated clusters, but not of this size, and not in such precise correlation with historical boundaries. The probability of this pattern arising by chance was statistically untenable. One explanation remained. This haplotype descended from a single man who lived approximately in the 11th or 12th century AD, a man who had a disproportionately enormous reproductive advantage, a man whose descendants held positions of power for several generations across a region spanning half the Asian continent. In history, there is only one person who fits this description. Researchers overlaid the distribution map of the C-star cluster onto the map of the Mongol Empire. The match was nearly perfect. The territories with the highest concentration of the haplogroup, Mongolia, Buryatia, Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, parts of Iran, northern China, are not simply territories Genghis Khan conquered. They are territories his direct descendants controlled for the longest time. Where Mongol Khans ruled not for one, but for 3 or 4 generations. Where Mongol nobility integrated into local elites, preserving their privileges for centuries. Territories beyond those borders, Europe, the Middle East, southern India, Southeast Asia, showed almost none of this marker. The Mongols reached Poland and Hungary in 1241. They attacked Japan twice, but they did not stay long. They left no ruling line for several generations, and the haplogroup confirms this. An additional observation was made in parallel. Among the Hazara of Afghanistan, a people who traditionally consider themselves direct descendants of Mongol conquerors, the concentration of the C-star cluster reached 35%. That is twice the level found in Mongolia itself. The Hazara preserved an oral tradition of descent from Mongol soldiers left behind by Genghis Khan and his successors on garrison duty in Afghanistan. Historians long dismissed this as myth. DNA says otherwise. But the most precise test of the hypothesis was still to come. If the C-star cluster truly belongs to Genghis Khan, its carriers should be found within the Borjigin, the aristocratic clan to which he belonged, and which for 7 centuries maintained the tradition of patrilineal descent from him. The Borjigins are not a mythical category. They are a specific, documented group. At the height of Mongol power, Borjigin membership meant access to power, land, and resources. After the empire's collapse, the clans survived in Mongolia, Inner Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Buryatia. Mongolian researchers working within subsequent genetic projects, including a group led by Timur Ochir Oyun of the National University of Mongolia, collected blood samples from men documented as Borjigins in family archives. The results? C-star cluster. Again and again. This was a moment scientists described as a clinically rare confirmation of a historical hypothesis. The genetic signature found in 2,000 men across Asia had now been identified in the very people who had preserved written evidence of their ancestry for 700 years. The statistical coincidence of 3 independent factors, frequency, geography, and documented lineage, placed the probability of chance correlation close to 0. But there was one more detail that transformed the research from an academic discovery into something personal. When geneticists began receiving messages from ordinary DNA testing participants, they found something unexpected. Hundreds of ordinary men from Kazakhstan, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, people who had never claimed aristocratic heritage, carried the same haplotype. Some knew family stories of Mongol ancestors passed down orally through generations. Some knew nothing at all. One such case was described in a blog post by a Kazakh user of a commercial genetic test. He submitted a sample to determine his DNA's ethnic composition. The result came back with a note: C2B-L1373, 100% through the direct male line. A specialist commenting on his case wrote, "This does not mean you are a descendant of Genghis Khan. It means you are a descendant of one of the most widely distributed male lineages in human history. Most likely, this is Genghis Khan, possibly one of his sons. Mathematically, it is the same person." The central question scientists could not avoid was this: could it be someone else? Science demands the consideration of alternatives. Tamerlane comes to mind first. His empire covered comparable territory. But the timeline does not match. The C-star cluster began spreading approximately a century before Timur's birth. Seljuk sultans? Arab caliphs? Chinese emperors? None of them controlled territory coinciding with the haplogroup's range. Geneticists also considered a random genetic bottleneck. But such processes take millennia, not centuries, and they do not produce patterns that match historical borders. The Tyler Smith team was careful. They wrote, "Our data are consistent with the hypothesis that the Y chromosome of the Mongol founder spread across Central Asia with the conquests of the Mongol Empire." The scientific restraint did not conceal what they actually believed. There was no other explanation. There was no other person in history whose genes could encompass 16 million living descendants through the direct male line. Today, commercial DNA tests can determine haplogroup. If your result shows C2b-L1373, the probability that you carry Genghis Khan's genetic signature is very high. By current estimates, that is 1 in every 200 men on the planet. What does this mean in practical terms? Exactly as much as you decide it means. Genetics is not destiny. The Y chromosome contains no memories, no personality, no purpose. But this is the largest individually documented genetic influence of a single historical person on living humanity. No other ruler, no other individual in history has left a comparable trace. Historians described Genghis Khan through what he destroyed. Geneticists found what he built. 40 million living people. The 2003 study opened a new direction in historical genetics. Before it, DNA was used to study prehistoric migrations, thousands of years before written sources. After it, it became clear. DNA can read historical time. Similar clusters have been found elsewhere, linked to the Nail kings of Ireland, to the Timurids of Central Asia. But none of them comes close to the scale of the C-star cluster. The Mongol Empire was unique in its combination of scale, power, and the duration of dominance by the founder's direct descendants. That combination has not been repeated. For 8 centuries, history measured Genghis Khan by destruction. The cities erased, the people killed. DNA offers a different unit of measurement. Not the count of deaths, the count of lives. Not the cities he destroyed, the people who continue to exist. Right now, approximately 40 million men in the world carry his Y chromosome. History has never known anything like it. And we only learned this because we have a technology that can read the past, not through the words of those who survived, but through the DNA of those who continue to live. If you want to see more about how DNA is rewriting history, subscribe. Every week we find another story that science tells differently.